today we are going to do some examples and hyperbolic. In the previous lesson, we were discussing about the double angles and the compound angles, and we were able to summarize and we were able to calculate some examples using double angle and compound angle. Even in some, we were able to combine the two of them. And today we are going to do some examples. We want to evaluate. This one was an example from a net paper, and you are given 9 marks. And the question was evaluate. This one was example. Evaluate sine 5x is equal to 3. If we get sine 5x is equal to 3, we are supposed to remember the formula if it is cos or sine. In our case, we know if it is sine, this exponential x minus exponential negative x over 2. But in our case, we are given sine 5x. That means the value of x should be equal to 5. The value of x now is 5. And this is the formula for sine. So you are going to say exponential. We replace x with 5x because the value of x is 5x minus exponential negative 5x divided by 2 should be equal to 3 using the formula. And then from there we are going to simplify and get the value of x using the formulas that we were able to go through in hyperbolic function. From there we are dividing by 2, but at this other side we have 3. You multiply by 2, you multiply this side by 2, you'll be able to cancel. You have exponential 5x minus exponential negative 5x is equal to 3 times 2 is 6. And then from there, exponential 5x minus this value, if 6 crosses to your left hand side, it becomes negative. If it was positive, if it crosses to this other side, it becomes negative. If it goes to your right hand side, if it was positive, it changes the sign to be the negative. So in our case, we get negative 6. And then from there, because this one is negative, if you have a value, let's say x negative 1, that is the same as saying 1 over x. So in our case, you are given x exponential negative 5x. That is the same as saying 1 over exponential 5x. And then from there, you multiply. You multiply all through by exponential 5x. You multiply this side by exponential 5x. And this other part, it's multiplied with exponential 5x. You cross this, you cancel this. If you multiply, you say if the powers are the same. If the base is exponential 5x, you multiply with exponential 5x. If the bases are the same, and you are going to multiply the powers, you are not going to say 5 times 5, you are saying 5 plus 5. So if it is 5 plus 5, it becomes exponential 10x. And then from there, those are the examples. From there, if you multiply this and this, you get exponential 5x, you multiply with exponential 5x, you get exponential 10x. Minus 6 times exponential 5x, which is 6 exponential 5x minus 1 is equal to 0. And then from there, because we have a quadratic equation, we now have a quadratic equation, which in quadratic we are talking of completing squares, formulas, at the same time we talk of factorization. But in our case, I'm going to factorize. If we say if you want to factorize, we have to ensure we talk of sum. That means we have two values. If you add, you'll be able to get 6. If you multiply, you get 1. In our case, we will not be able to have such examples. So what I'm going to do, we just use the formula method. And we remember the formula method. This is the formula method. We have negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. That is now the formula method. But you have to remember this one is exponential with a given value. That means you have to say let n be equal to exponential 5x. For us to simplify using the formula method, we simplify using other values than exponential with a given value. That means you are going to have exponential 5x. If you multiply by 2, that's like squaring. But when we talk of indices, instead of squaring, you multiply. That is 5 multiplied by 2, you get 10. Minus 6 exponential 5x minus 1 is equal to 0. We use the formula method, which is x squared minus 6m minus 1 is equal to 0. In this case now, we can now calculate using the formula method. We have negative b. This is now the value of a. This is b, and that one is c. Negative b. Negative and negative become positive, which is 6 plus or minus b squared. B squared is negative 6. Negative 6 squared is, we are going to get 36. And then we have minus 4ac. That means 4, we multiply with a. We have the value of a which is times negative. So negative and negative become positive. So you're going to say 6 squared, which is 36. That is the same as saying 6 plus or minus square root of 6 squared, which is 36. Minus minus becomes plus 4. You divide by 2. So in our case, we have 36 plus 4, which is now 40. 6 plus or minus the square root of 40, you divide by 2. What is the square root of 40? Square root of 40 will be 6.325. So you're going to say 6 plus or minus 6.325 and then you divide by 2. If you divide by 2, because you are saying it can either be plus or minus. So you're going to say 6 plus 6.325 divided by 2. You are going to get 6.162. At the same time, if we subtract 6 minus 6.325 divided by 2, you get this value. But you have to remember we say m is equal to exponential 5x. So what are we going to do? We replace m with exponential 5x. We are going to say exponential 5x is equal to this value because this one is the value of m and the other one is the value of m. Let's go to the next part. Exponential 5x is equal to the first value. And in using the calculator, you are going to introduce the natural logarithm. LIN, which is the natural logarithm of exponential 5x, is equal to we talk of natural logarithm of 6.162. So in such a case, any value, if you talk of natural logarithm of an exponential of a given value, will be that value. So in our case, what will be the value? It will be 5x is equal to natural logarithm of this. You get 1.8184 divided by 5 because we have 5x. You divide by 5 and you get this value. That is now the value of x is equal to this value. But you have to remember the value of x, we had two values, the first one and the second one. And in the second value, we were having a negative. And when you talk of a negative value, if you want to calculate the natural logarithm of a negative value, you'll be able to get in your calculator, it will write maybe sign error or math error. That means it is infinity or infinity. That is exponential 5x is equal to negative this value. We introduce a natural logarithm, at the other section. That means you have 5x is equal to natural logarithm of that value. So if you get a natural logarithm of a negative value, it can say math error. A math error is infinity. That means that value is too high and you cannot be able to calculate using your calculator. So in such a case, we have the two values, but in our case we can't have this other value. That means we'll have one value of x. That is the value of now x. The first value of x is this, which is 0.3636. And that is 9 marks. I believe this one will be simpler. If you'll be able to follow this method, I'll be able to send some examples and then you'll be able to calculate. Let's go to another value, example 2. You're given exponent, we talk of 4 cos x plus sin x is equal to a. You have to remember the formulas. If we talk of cos is exponential x plus exponential negative x over. If it is sin, it is exponential x minus exponential negative x. Divide by 2, you get equates to 8. And then from there, you have to remember we are multiplying by 4. We have 4 at the output, but you are dividing by 2. That's why I was able to say 4 divided by 2, you get the value plus. This one is over 2, that is the same as half. Exponential x minus exponential negative x is equal to 8. And then from there, we'll be able to multiply all through by 2. If you multiply by 2, you'll be able to cancel this. If you multiply by 2, you'll be able to cancel this. You remain with 4. That's why I've written 4. 4 is equal to exponential x plus exponential negative x plus exponential x minus exponential negative x. 8 times 2, you'll be able to get 16. From there, let's open the brackets. If you open the brackets, you multiply all through by 4. That is the value which is inside the bracket. You multiply by 4, you get 4 exponential x plus 4 exponential negative x plus exponential x is equal to 16. And then from there, we collect the like terms. The like terms, that means we have negative and negative. These two are positive, positive. You say 4 plus 1, you get 5 exponential x. 4 minus 1, you get 3, which is plus 3 exponential negative x minus this one. And then from there, we have, because I said any value which is having a power of negative. If it is a value, let's say x raised to negative 1, which is the same as 1 over x. You divide by that value and then you multiply all through. You get 5 exponential x minus 16 exponential x plus 3 is equal to 0. And then from there we'll be able to use now the formula method for us to get the value of x. And then if we use the formula method, the first one is a, b, and c. But in such a case, you can use any other value or any other formula for quadratic equation. You can either use completing squares, we talk of factorization or formula method. But in our case, I was able to use the formula method, but you can use any, and you'll be able to get the value of x. And then we have in formula method, you are saying negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac, you get the square root over 2a. This is now the formula method. And then we have the value of b is 16. Negative and negative become positive, which is 16 plus or minus square root of 16 squared minus 60, which is 256 minus 60. If you get the square root, you get 14. You say 16 plus or minus 14 divided by 10. Let's add using the first one. You say 16 plus 14, and then you divide by 10. That is 30. You divide by 10, you get 3. And then 16 minus 14, you get, that is 2 divided by 10, you get 0.2. That is the value of, these two values are the values of m. And then from there, exponential x is equal to 3 exponential x. We say but m is equal to exponential x. So exponential x is equal to 3. You get the value, the natural logarithm of 3 and the natural logarithm of 0.2. And in this case, we are going to get the two answers for x, which is 0.2, which is negative 1.6, and the other value is 1.098. And that is the end for today. I'll be able to send you some other examples you'll be able to go through. In case of any challenge, let me know. Thank you.